Hello, Raj. What are you doing here?
Hey Jay,
Are we
hope you're
live?
doing well.
Is this live?
Yeah,
All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to Repost Live, the companion live stream, of course, to repost.aws, where we, of course, dive deep into your questions, your use cases, and basically all of the chatter from repost.aws. So you're really missing out if you're not on the platform already, because we're one of the few platforms where we're catered to our audience. We built all of our content around you. So it's really your fault if you're not in on the secret. But I have an opportunity for you. You can head over to repost.aws right this second with your account ID, your builder ID, and get started using the platform. You can chat to me. You can chat with Raj, Anoop, Steven. There's so many characters in the Repost universe, and you're just missing out. So head over there right now, get started, get signed up. And I know today we are talking all things model distillation and AI. So a bunch of content is what you're also missing out on. But anyway, I'll give you one more opportunity. Go over to repost.aws. Raj, I think you're friendly. I feel like the entire world knows who you are by now, but I'm told by the producers to at least allow you to introduce yourself. So, Raj, please introduce yourself.
sure. Hello all. This is Raj. I'm a principal TAM with AWS. Been with AWS for about 9 years now, and I regularly speak at Repo Show. I've done a lot with Jay and the other hosts, and pretty much whenever I come in, I talk only about generative AI, machine learning, data analytics, and today is also one topic of that kind. And I'm really happy to be here. I'm based out of New York, and I work specifically around media and entertainment use cases. And from a technology perspective, as I said, since I bring in all the Gen AI topics, it's all machine learning, data analytics from my side. Yeah.
I have like 5 AI friends, and Raj is probably my most loyal confidant. So I'm super excited about this content around AI distillation. Before we get there, though, of course, we have to pay the bills because otherwise they don't let me come back on this show. No, I'm just joking. But please, again, as I mentioned before, head over to repost.aws, get signed up. You've already heard that. But I'm also going to drop a link to a brief survey. Let us know how we're doing. I'll drop that in the chat wherever it may be, within my finger or on the screen or whatever. Fill it out. Takes 2 seconds. Really helps us narrow in the content that we deliver to you guys. Raj, this is a rapidly evolving space. Can we just say that right off the top? AI,
Absolutely.
generative AI, and many of these sort of ancillary topics, from prompt engineering to all of these new sort of agentic frameworks from, LangChain and MCP, ACA, just when I thought I had all of my acronyms down in the vast world of, just traditional IT, now AI has exposed me to a whole new realm of technology and capabilities, etc. And at least for me, for the everyday guy out there, distillation really kind of came across my desk in the wake of the DeepSeek item, right? That's probably where most folks maybe were introduced to this concept of distillation. And I know that you wrote an article recently around model distillation, and from really a more kind of practical, less conspiratorial than maybe what I had
Yeah.
initially thought of it, around how to leverage this. Is it a technique, I guess, to
Right.
shrink AI for your performance, right? There was a lot that kind of came from, again, that kind of DeepSeek moment that many folks in the community, in the technical community, really learn and could apply to their everyday use of AI. So let's start there. Like, what exactly is this sort of model distillation? And maybe take us through the article that you kind of wrote for folks out there on Repos.
Absolutely. We'll share this article as well. And
Oh,
the
yeah. We'll drop
intent,
that in chat.
yeah, the intent of this article, Jay, as you said, this is a very rapidly evolving space. especially when it comes to generative AI. And within generative AI, one of the areas that anyone who's working on a generative AI project today is focusing on is around how do I get these models perform optimally. And if you define the word optimally, it's more around keeping the cost low and getting faster responses for a good user experience, and at the same time keeping the accuracy pretty high, right? And that's a challenge. And let's face it, with regards to, if you want to, like, we all know about generative AI, so I'm not going to go into the basics, but essentially in Gen AI, when you ask a question in a simple chat interaction, or maybe
Yeah.
in a complex agentic AI, whenever you ask a question, there is a response that you get. And you as a user, you don't want that response to be hallucinating. You want to be precise on the question that you asked, right? That's where, as you said, prompt engineering and other thing comes in. And when you get these responses, as you want it to be accurate, you also want to make sure you get the responses faster. You don't want to keep waiting for that response. And when you work on these projects in today's world, any project, irrespective of generative AI, you want to keep the cost to be very optimal. And model distillation, the topic that we are going to dive deep, is going to help you in that.
Hmm.
How do I get the same level of accuracy that I get from a 70 billion parameter model in a 1 billion parameter model, right? How do I get that level of accuracy? And when I get that level of accuracy for my use case, obviously the model is going to be smaller, as a result of which it's going to respond faster, lower latency, and the cost is going to be low. Yeah. So we'll dive deep. We'll dive deep into how the metrics work and how do you practically implement it. But at a very high level, that's model distillation. You take a big model, you basically get that model with some training data, ground truth data, either through model invocation or through your data set, right? And then for your particular use case. And then you get the same level of accuracy that you get from that bigger model in the smaller model. That's the core concept of model distillation. And this article that you brought up, Jay, the primary intent of this article, this is a 101, right? It's a pretty basic getting started article, and I plan to run few more of these articles, like level 200, level 300, and the plan is to come back to the repo show and then do a series of sessions, right? We won't be able to cover everything today, but today is a, if you are one who's looking to achieve whatever that I said so far, that level of accuracy with a smaller model at an optimal cost, right? You know the use case. You found out what is your use case, and this is the session that is going to help you, and this is the article that is going to help you get started.
Okay. Yeah. So if you even are kind of new, maybe you've only experimented with off-the-shelf models, either third-party models or models available through the providers that we offer in Bedrock. Let us know if you have experimented at all with any model customization. That we'll kind of get to later in the show, Raj, about all of the different ways that you can kind of customize models through Bedrock. But specifically, of course, if you've experimented at all with the new distillation customization method, let us know what your use case was, or if you had any questions, concerns, etc. We are here to take all of your questions live on air. So, but I want to double click on a few items that you mentioned previously, which was really around kind of cost and optimization, right? So some of the same fundamentals, right, that apply to really any amount of consumption you may have on the cloud, or really just anywhere, right? Like right sizing your workloads such that they are efficient and meet the needs of the business. Same rules kind of apply. There's new technology and different components here, right? Bedrock and now your models themselves, but using distillation as a means of just optimizing your sort of AI, if you will, is obviously super applicable to everybody who's kind of rushing to see what value creation they can realize. So
absolutely. So whatever you said, absolutely right, Jay. And before we get going with the actual process, right? How you will work on generative AI. I do want to highlight one item which you can find in the article that I shared. What is model distillation in general, right? It is important to understand that before we get into Bedrock model distillation or how the generative AI things work. Model distillation is a technique within machine learning or AI where you are working on transferring knowledge from a larger complex model, which we call it as teacher model, to a smaller, more efficient model, which we call as a student model. So in our case, we can take, like, if people here know about the first party models that Amazon offers, which is Nova. Previously, we used to have Titan. Now it is Nova. Nova has a model called Nova Premier, and Nova also has a model called Nova Lite or Nova Micro, right? So you can consider Nova Premier to be your teacher model, which is the bigger model. And you can consider Nova Lite to be the smaller model, which is the student model. Yeah. And in this case, how can we get the details, right, in for specific use case? For example, let's say that you're working on a use case as a financial advisor, and you're getting some level of responses from Nova Premier, which is very good, right? You want to transfer that financial advisor knowledge, right? Specifically financial advisor knowledge to the smaller model. You can use model distillation for that. So that process of using this teacher and then adding some additional data set and then getting this knowledge into the student model, that process is model distillation. And then I see someone asking a question of, there is no shrinkage like model shrinkage. Yeah, absolutely. That is just the verbiage that we used for the title. But essentially, this is like, technically, as you understand, like whatever I'm saying, you have a bigger model, 70 billion parameter. You have a smaller model, 1 billion parameter. You're going to make sure for your use case, not for all the use cases, then it defeats the purpose. Because it is addressing all the use cases, it is 70 billion. But your use case could be like 500,000, etc. Right? So that piece alone, you're going to make sure that the smaller model is mimicking, or it is giving the same kind of a response as this of the bigger model.
I gotcha. Okay, so that's
so let me share my screen.
Like model consolidate, or how you can kind of customize this stuff.
That is correct. It comes under model customization only. So let me clarify that, right? Because whenever you're starting with any generative AI use cases, you typically the first step is that we all know that there are n number of foundation models, right? So for us to choose the right foundation model to your use case is going to be the critical one. And within Bedrock, I don't want to jump the gun, but this is a different topic. We did a session sometime back, I think a few months back, Jay, I don't know if you remember. We did a session on Bedrock on model evaluation, Bedrock model evaluation.
Of course, I would. Well, why? How could I forget? I don't. Every episode we do, I remember. But yes, I do remember that.
So that model evaluation capability of Bedrock is going to help you test different foundation models, right? So first, you'll go and pick a foundation model and say that, hey, I'm able to get the responses from this foundation model. Let's call it like foundation model 1. And I have foundation model 2, I get good responses. 3, 4, 5, they're no good, right? So I'll leave that. I just have like top 2 foundation models. Now, because of the size of these foundation models, or because of the different attributes of these foundation models, the way in which they respond, the responsible AI attributes, and few others, right? There'll be few things that you will have as priority or a trade-off. And you use the Bedrock model evaluation tool to go ahead and figure out which model gets you the right response, right? Now, let's say you picked up the foundation model 1. So I'm going to call this F1, right? So F1 is your foundation model that you said, okay, I have decided I'm going to use this after evaluating with a few other models. This is the one that is helping me. And you have something called as U1, which is your use case, right? Now we are going to get into the customization aspects. Now you have this model. Let's say it is giving you accuracy A3, right? I'm just giving a random metric for easier understanding. It is at an accuracy of A3. But you want to take this accuracy to be like A1, right? You want to improve the accuracy. So in that case, what you do is called fine-tuning. So fine-tuning is the process where you decided this is my foundation model, but I'm going to improve my accuracy. On the flip side, you're seeing that, hey, this use case is good. Now the use case is pretty much the same, but your ask is going to be slightly different. My use case is the same, but I'm happy with the accuracy. The A3 that I've got, I'm not planning to increase it anymore. I'm good with the A3 level of accuracy, but I want to bring down the latency, and I want to bring down the cost aspects as well. So in this case, this is where you will go ahead and choose the model distillation. So this is a distilled model that I've got. So this is where you will use model distillation. Is that clear, Jay? I just wanted to clarify within customization, because there are several things that we do in customization. When would you use model fine-tuning versus when would you use distillation?
Yeah, and I think it kind of varies, right? Like based on your use case. And I like, again, back to a thread you mentioned earlier, just kind of right sizing your model choice, whatever that might be, right? From this,
Correct.
The supermarket of models that is Bedrock, right? To optimally meet your needs is kind of what I understand this to be.
Absolutely. So keep it very simple. Tuning is tuning or fine-tuning, right? Within customization, tuning or fine-tuning is more about improving your accuracy. You get a response, you're not satisfied with the accuracy. It is like slightly hallucinating. I want to improve the accuracy. I want to get a better response to my use case. That is fine-tuning, because you tune further so that the model gives you the level of accuracy. On model distillation, you're satisfied with the accuracy. You get the level of response. Whatever questions you ask, it's giving perfect responses for you. But you want to improve the cost. Like I don't want to spend this much. I want to reduce my cost. The speed in which I'm getting the response, I want to reduce it to a few ms as well. I'm getting it at around, let's say, 7k ms, and I want to bring that down to 2k ms, right? So in that case, I will use model distillation. So taking it to a smaller model. So let me clarify that little further, right? So these are the typical 3 attributes whenever you work on foundation models, which is cost, quality of response. Quality of response is nothing but, so far, whatever that we're talking about as accuracy is your quality of response. And then speed is nothing but your latency, right? The latency in which you get the response. And cost is nothing but your dollar value. Now, if you look at different foundation models, I was taking an example of a 70 billion parameter versus 1 billion parameter, right? So if you are getting a 70 billion parameter, obviously your quality of response is going to be high, because it's a big model. It has more knowledge. It can do versatile things. It is going to give you a better quality response. Versus when you're looking at a 1 billion parameter, the quality of response is going to be lower, because it doesn't have that much of knowledge on versatile things, right? But in your case, what you're going to do is you're going to take your use case. In our typical case, we are talking about finance advisor, right? So if you're a finance advisor, you don't need to know about a football match or a soccer match, right? You're not going to ask those questions. You're going to ask specific questions about, hey, I have this much money, where should I invest, right? So those are finance specific questions. So for that, you don't need all of this 30 billion parameters, or you don't need that much of knowledge. So what we are going to do is we are ideally going to get this here. So there are 2 ways to do it, right? Either you can take this bigger model and improve its speed, or you can take the smaller model, which is already giving you a faster response, and then basically improve its accuracy. And what we are going to do through model distillation is this process, not this one. We are going to take the smaller model, and we are going to make the smaller model give, let's say, this is response L1, right? And this is getting response L2. And L2 is a better response, let's say, from an accuracy. How am I going to make this model get me a response of L2? And that's what we're going to do. This is all theoretical. You don't have to worry about it. Theoretically, this is what we are going to do. But when you see that practically, you'll be able to correlate this. Essentially, we are taking a smaller model, and we are going to improve its quality of response through RAG or through your agentic AI with additional data set. and then make it perform better.
Without spending billions of dollars,
That is
because
correct.
a model with that many parameters, cost a few dollars, right, to
That is
produce.
correct.
As we were kind of chatting, Sam actually asked a question around, I think more like kind of nomenclature, like is fine tuning, equivalent to distillation in terms of AWS kind of nomenclature? And
No,
the answer is no, right? Like these are
no.
kind of
The answer is no.
industry terms, right? Like that we're discussing. And really, Raj, what you're highlighting is kind of the difference between like traditional FM and then like where distillation of that model
Correct.
kind of comes into play and what the use cases are. So
correct. I will show it in the console, Jay, so it is pretty clear. Let me share my screen.
Yeah. I think great question, Sam. If you have additional questions, keep them coming. But no, it's not an AWS specific term. These are kind of general AI nomenclature, if you will.
That is correct. And Sam, as you're seeing in the console, right, this is the Bedrock console. And I'm going to a section for custom models, right? This is specifically to address your question. And you have multiple customization methods, right? Distillation is one, fine-tuning is one, continued pre-training is one. So as I said earlier, if you want to improve the accuracy of the model, then this is the method that you will use to create your custom model. But you are already happy with the accuracy of the use case itself is different, right? Not the technical use case, but your ask, but your need itself is different. When you want to improve your accuracy, that's when you'll go into fine-tuning, and you can do the fine-tuning within Bedrock itself. Whereas you have two models and you're satisfied with the response you get from one model, and you're satisfied with the response you get from the second model also. But the second model gives you a lower accurate response than the first model, but it is giving you a faster response. You get the difference? So now you're juggling between two models. In fine-tuning, you're not juggling between two models. You already decided one model, you're tuning it better. But in this case, you have decided one model is giving you accurate response, another one is giving a faster response. Now, how do I get this model, whichever is giving that faster response, give me the same level of accurate response? That is essentially what you're going to do with distillation. Yeah.
I liked how serious your camera got as you were going through some of those times. It lured me in. But hey, if you're just joining out there, I have Raj here. We're chatting all things model distillation. This is Repost Live. If you've never joined our weekly live stream, we're here every week chatting about different topics, including this one. So feel free to ask questions. We'll take them live on air. Okay, so I'm oriented, and I'm now in the console, Raj. You're showing me Bedrock. And in Bedrock, from the lens of my customization options that I have relative to my models, I can do distillation, fine-tuning, or continue pre-training.
That is correct.
And kind of that graph you showed, right? I'm really just trying to balance between speed, cost, and accuracy without spending $1 billion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So let me make it even clearer with a live example. I think that will help. I'm bringing up two models in here. Okay.
Yeah.
This is whatever we are talking right now is all model distillation. You have Nova Premier, you have Nova Micro. Okay. And essentially, if you look at these two models, I'm going to go to the playground. Where's my playground? And I'm going to bring in the chat. And one thing to note, that model distillation currently supports only text attributes from a modality perspective, text to text. Right now, again, as you know, with this evolving space, right now, as of today, it is only a test. So when I'm going to say chat, right, and I'm going to select a model, and I'm going to take the first party model. So you see Nova Premier, and you see Nova Micro or Nova Lite, right? So essentially, this is a pretty heavy model. It's a premier version of the model, which has maximum of 1 million token. And on the flip side, let's say you also have a Nova Pro, which is like kind of a media model, which is like around 300K token. But on the Micro, if you see, it's like only 128K token, right? Essentially, from a capability perspective, or what it can do, right? Kind of responses that you would get. This is definitely going to give you better responses because of the size of the model, and that's physics, right? Because it is trained on vast amount of data. It's going to have little more knowledge than, I mean, not little, vast amount of knowledge compared to the Nova micro model. And today we have like 70 billion parameter models as well. So obviously those models are the ones that are high performing models. In that context, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the same question to these two models. You know about the two models. One is the Premier, one is the Micro. I'm asking a question, hey, what is Bedrock model distillation? Right. So far, whatever we covered is like what is model distillation basically. But now I'm asking a question. In Bedrock, what is model distillation? So you get a response that model distillation within Bedrock refers to the process of creating smaller, more efficient machine learning models, which is the student model that is trained by replicating the performance, blah, 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 right? Whatever that we said. And essentially, you see the differences in here. It doesn't get into key concepts on the Premier model, but here you get a key concepts, and then there is some benefits and where do you apply. But Premier gets into loss function, right? Let me see if there is a loss function here. There is no mention of loss function. There's only knowledge distillation, something like this, right? So there is definitely a difference in the responses. And I would say that this is a little more accurate response than this one. But on the flip side, let us see what is the latency. We're talking about when you click on this, you get this. This is the latency label, which is like 7947 ms. Versus on Micro, you get a faster response, which is like 2010, right? So this is a trade-off. You get a little more accurate, little more precise response, but in Micro model, you get a faster response. And it is a smaller model, and that's the reason it's getting faster response. And the cost is also low because it's a smaller model. But you're not getting the level of accuracy that you get on this model. And that is what we're going to match with a model distillation. So I'm going to take this Premier model, and I'm going to keep this as a teacher. And then I'm going to keep this as a student model. And I'm going to supply with some data specific to my use case, which is like financial advisor, and make this model, let's say this is L1 response, this is L2 response. Make this model give me the same response as this one, which is L1 response at this latency.
Okay. And presumably, right, again, there is a correlation between sort of latency and cost, right? Because there's more just by way of the kind of token framework and how these things are actually billed to customers.
Correct. So, Jay, before we get into the hands-on section, I wanted to highlight a few things, and I'm going to use the documentation. We'll share links to this documentation.
Absolutely.
This is how Amazon Bedrock model distillation works. So far, what we saw is what is model distillation, difference between distillation and fine-tuning. What is Bedrock model distillation? And you saw the differences, right? What we are trying to achieve in that. Essentially, there is one component which I wanted to highlight, which is in Bedrock model distillation, we use a proprietary data synthesis technique. That is the core. Essentially, when you look into model distillation, not for Amazon, but in general, the model distillation, the terminology, you can do two types of model distillation. One is black box, another one is white box. Whatever that we are doing in Bedrock is black box. And what I mean by, we know what's the difference between black box versus white box. It's like you do not have knowledge of what is happening under the covers. Yeah. And then we basically take care of the undifferentiated heavy lifting. That could be GPUs, or that could be getting the right instances. You don't have to worry about all of this. Yeah, and maybe you can ask a question then, Jay. Okay, so Amazon only offers white box method of model distillation? The answer is no. We also offer the, does Amazon offer only the black box? No, we also offer the white box side of model distillation. That is done within SageMaker AI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which again, just gives more visibility to that process, right? That sort of distillation process.
Absolutely. So if you remember, Jay, when we talk about what are the different tiers of AWS services within generative AI, we go with Trainium, Inferentia, SageMaker at the bottom, then Bedrock, then Amazon Q, right? So that middle layer is your model distillation that is kind of a black box, right?
I got you.
If you want to go a little more deeper and then you want to get that visibility, then you can do it with SageMaker. We are not going to cover that today. We will get into SageMaker, but that is also using Bedrock APIs only. That is also the black box way of doing it.
I gotcha.
This
It's a
is a
good call
complete
out,
different
right?
topic.
It's a
Yeah.
good call out, right? Within the
Yeah.
domain, like you mentioned, the stack, right? From infrastructure all the way up to kind of managed services to fully managed experiences like, Q.
Correct. Correct. So essentially, the way this works is we were talking about teacher and student, right?
Yeah.
You take this teacher model, and then basically you apply the proprietary data synthesis technique, and you generate high quality teacher responses. There are two ways you can do it. One is that you can bring in your data set, right? And that data set will basically have, here is a question, here is a response. Here is a question, here is a response. For these type of questions, these are the responses. I'll show you the sample JSON file and tell that, hey, using this JSON file, train my student model, right? That's option one. Option two is, previously we were talking about choosing foundation models and then deploying it after you evaluate a foundation model. Let's say you're at a phase where you've already deployed this model in production, right? In that case, you're trying to reduce the latency. If that is the use case, what you could do is, if you enable invocation logs, all these models, you can enable invocation log within Bedrock. If you enable the invocation log, you can point this model distillation job to that invocation logs. And then based on that invocation logs are nothing but when users come and ask a question in production model, it gives you a response, right? So those invocation logs will be used as a training data set to this student model. And I'll show that in action. This is all mostly on the theoretical front. I just wanted to cover as
no, the theory helps, Raj. I've gotten my head around this concept. I like to think of it again. Whenever my wife leaves town, she distills her knowledge about what I should be doing around the house in the form of a curated list. Do these things, and I become the student. Works very similar, right?
Absolutely.
So, okay.
So we spoke about the synthetic data set, right? We want to give that sample data set. And I wanted to call out how that data set will look like. This is what we have it in our documentation. I have a data set which I'll bring, but there are two use cases you can use. One is pretty old. Well, to me, what is old is like about 6 months back, which is the RAG use case. One which is fairly new in 2025, which is agentic AI. So if your use case is agentic AI and you want to use a prompt example, here's the example. This is the format in which you will give. Yeah.
What a world. I'm old enough to remember when RAG was cool.
Yeah.
Now, if it's not an agent, you're a loser.
Yeah. So that is something that I wanted to highlight. And then essentially the way you will customize the model, I will show this in the screen itself. There's nothing much to go over in the documentation, but we'll share the links to documentation. One thing I wanted to highlight is what models are supported. That would be a question. And again, I'll say as of today, first-party models, Nova Pro, Nova Premier, and these are the teacher models that you can use. And the respective student model for that, you can use our Nova Lite, Nova Micro. And right now, as of today, you can stay only within the family, meaning if you pick up this Nova Pro to be your teacher model, you can only pick these two as your student model. You cannot pick Claude HiQ as a student model for a Nova Premier model. And similarly, the other way, you cannot go this cross way. Within Claude, if this is the model that you're happy with the results, you can choose Claude 3 HiQ. Again, as of today, as you know, we work backwards from customer. Technically, it is possible, but there are different, especially with this data synthesis technique that I was talking about, right? The proprietary data synthesis technique that needs to change. There are certain things that need to happen. Happen for facilitating this cross interaction. So the ask is, whoever is tuning in, if you have a use case that you want to do this kind of a cross training, please reach out to your account team, and they'll be happy to add a +1 if required. But as of today, it is available for Amazon, Anthropic models, and Meta Llama models, and you can go through these models and not cross. And from a region perspective, I wanted to highlight, this is something that some people have asked me that, hey, I go to US East region. You say that Anthropic is supported, but I don't find Anthropic models in US East within model distillation. That is because the model distillation for Anthropic happens in Oregon as of today. However, for NOVA models, it happens in US East region. I'll show that to you in the console as well. And similarly, Meta also happens in Oregon. Yeah.
I wonder if I can just move my distilled model or share it through RAM or something. That's interesting.
You can do cross-region inferencing. Like after you create the model, you can do cross-region inferencing for a higher performance. Yeah, that you can do.
I gotcha. Okay.
Let's dive into the demo.
Yeah, let's see some the demo. I couldn't help but think as you were going through a lot of that documentation that Repost covered some of the agentic tools. I think a few weeks back on our AWS on air segment, and if you missed it, you can go check that out on YouTube. But using tools like Klein to be able to just like quickly or Q at some point, like just to quickly use natural language to go do things. And although I love the control, I love the documentation you shared and some of the gotchas that are inherently kind of in it, I couldn't help but think, I wonder at some point, within my IDE, I'm just going to be able to quickly say, all right, here's my use case. This is great. Now go distill this or make it optimal, and it'll effectively run through this distillation process for me.
Absolutely. There are two ways you can initiate a distillation job. We are going to get into the demo. Option one, you can use the console. You come into the Bedrock console, custom model distillation, and then you can create a distillation job. Option two, there is GitHub link, which I'm sharing here in the screen, and we can also share it to you. Here, I've just shared the link, which you will all get. This has a Python notebook of distillation via S3 and also the invocation method of distillation. You can run this in Jupyter Labs. I'll come to that later. But essentially, there are two ways of doing it. One is that you can use the Bedrock console, come here, and then create a distillation job. Similar to this, you can go to your Jupyter Labs, and within Jupyter Labs, you can invoke the Bedrock APIs. Again, these are all not SageMaker APIs. This is I'm just bringing in the Jupyter Labs within SageMaker, but all of these API calls are going only to Bedrock. So it is still that black box type that we were talking about. In that itself, we can do two ways, right? One is through Jupyter Labs, and option two is in the Bedrock console. So essentially, when you do it in Bedrock console, first we'll finish off the console, and then if time permits, we'll go into Jupyter Labs. So here I'm going to say test 23 June 10. I'm going to give the same one in here. This is just the model name, and this is the job configuration. And the teacher model, as I said earlier, if you're seeing the screen, we are in US East region, right? North Virginia. And essentially, when you choose the model, you don't find Meta or Anthropic. You only see Amazon's models. If you go into US West, you won't see Amazon, but you'll see the other two models. I'm going to pick Premier, NOVA Premier, apply. And on the student model, I'm going to say NOVA Micro, right? And again, I'm picking this randomly just from demo purposes, but you will do all of this after your evaluation. You did all the model evaluation, you found out what is the accuracy. Accordingly, you will choose which is the student model, which is the teacher model. And then these are the two options that I was talking about when it comes to the data, right? One is directly upload the data from JSON to S3. So if you're looking at what is this JSON file, right? And in the GitHub link that I shared, in the sample data set, you'll find this Uber 10K JSON. So this is the sample data. This is the training data. This is the use case that I was talking about. You're a financial analyst, and you're charged with this question, blah, blah, blah. So here, the format you have is you have a prompt, you have a question, and then you have a response in here, right? And each line, this is JSON line. So each line is one record that you have. And this is where you can point what is that S3 file. So I have all the files in a S3 bucket called Raj Distill. And I'm going to just say, I have to browse Raj Distill. So I'm going to pick this S3 bucket. I've already posted it. So if you see the S3 bucket, You see this JSON file,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is the
yeah.
10K file. And
Yep.
similarly, within a test also, I have converted that file to a format which has to be used. So if you see what is this format, right? When you looked into this format is different than the format that I showed here. You see this format? This is different. This says you need to have schema version, Bedrock, system. Here's the text. This format is different from this format. You see that, right? So we need to convert this into that format. And I have done that already. And there is a conversion process. I'll tell you how to do that. I've converted that and posted it here. So when I come to the model distillation, where I'm going to say, here's the S3 bucket, this is where my file is. And I'm also going to say the same thing for the output, but this one is going to be in a folder called output. So if you see in here under distill, you see this output, right? So this is where I'm going to store all the output. So I'm going to call that out. Too many tabs. And then you need to create an existing service role or use an you need to create a new role or use an existing one. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to say test June 10, 2025. And I'm going to say create a job. And as it is creating, I do want to call this out. After you have distilled the model, right, you will create a custom model. Custom model is the output of the distill process. When you want to invoke that model, when you want to ask questions and get responses, you need to buy provisioned throughput. You need to purchase provisioned throughput. In most cases, you may not have that limit increased. So you first have to submit service quotas request.
Yep.
And then purchase that limit. I'm sorry, the provision throughput. So now, as you see, the job is now submitted, and you see it is in progress, right? We are not going to wait for it. I've already created one job, so I'm going to open that. This test 43 is something that I created. And what you see in here is a clear view at a high level on what is the job status. Validation is completed, data processing is completed, and training is completed. And at any point, if you find some errors, you will find that show up here. So you will know that maybe the data processing, there were some errors and the model did not get complete. And it will also tell you what is
3 hours.
Yeah, it did. It did take about 3 hours because it's a huge data set that we have given. Wow. And then it also gives you what is the job earned and what is the role that you used, and which is the teacher model and which is the student model.
So Raj, can I see the view custom model details at the top? Does that then give me a log of, or what do I see?
Sure. So essentially, if you click that, it will take you to that model. And there is another way of doing it. So if you go to this, custom models, right? There are 2 tabs in here. This is where you will submit the distillation job or fine-tuning job, any job. So if you see here, fine-tuning job, distillation, or continued pre-training. After this is done, the output of it, right, that model will go and get stored here. So if you click here, you will get that customized model. So these are all the models. The one that when I clicked it, it opened, right? That is nothing but this. This is the model.
And again, in case folks missed it, after you distill a model, you then need to purchase provision capacity to be able to probe said model. Or prompt, invoke the model, yes, by way of prompting. But okay, that makes sense.
Cool. Now what we'll see is now you saw, right?
Yeah, this is pretty simple process.
Pretty simple.
Yeah,
absolutely. The only thing that is going to be slightly difficult in the beginning is about your data set, because the more accurate, the more correct data set that you give to the model, you'll be able to achieve the accuracy that you're looking for at a lower latency. If that model doesn't have enough responses, then probably you are not going to get that level of accuracy. And that is the reason that in some cases, customers may get started like, I'm just beginning with this process, and then I use this method, right? We were talking about what is this method? If I create a job, if I create a distillation job, if I'm new, I will use this method. which is directly upload the JSON file that I showed. I'll convert it to that format and then upload it here. But if I'm already having a model that is running in production, right? This will give you better responses. You're just going to give access to that invocation log. You already have it in S3. What, like, your hundreds or thousands of users have queried every day, and then what responses they've got. And that invocation. So basically, what invocation log? These invocation logs are coming from your teacher model. Yeah, because you're already using your teacher model in production. And if you're working backwards, Jay, how did we start this problem statement, right? You're already happy with the teacher model. You're already happy with the accuracy. You want to lower the latency. So all these invocation logs are coming from your teacher model, and you will present that to your student model. So it will learn based on, oh, for these questions, my teacher is responding this way. Let me also respond the same way. That's the whole crux.
Yeah, or maybe I sort of distill to a subset of those inquiries. And then, leave the larger model for, the bulk of the prompts or a different use case, et cetera. That kind of makes sense. And again, another item you mentioned, text only, right? As far as modality. Okay.
As of today, it is only text to text models.
Okay.
So I think let us flip to, since we have some time, maybe 5 minutes, I'll spend on this one. This is another way of doing it, right? So if you plan to use the Bedrock samples in here, which we shared, this GitHub repo that has set for fine tuning, that also has model distillation. Since we are covering model distillation, you basically go and launch SageMaker Studio, and within SageMaker Studio, I have one of the spaces created, and I'm just creating and I'm opening that space. And within that space, I just cloned that repo, right? And once I clone the repo, I'm going to get the sample data and these Python notebook. And I was just running these Python notebook. I'll just break down at a very high level what this is doing. I'm going to give the bucket suffix and what is the data prefix, where my data is getting stored. And I'm going to say that, hey, this is my teacher model. This is my student model. Same experience. Yeah. Whatever you did within the console, you're just calling it in here. And here is your model preparation activity. So for this step, right, you can use this method. So this method is basically going to say that this piece of code, right? This piece of code is going to take this format of data and just convert that into this format of data. So this is one of the crucial steps that you will have to do because the model distillation API will accept the data only if it is in this format. It will not accept the data if it is in this format. It will give you an error message. So just wanted to call that out. Maybe when you're trying to do the model distillation, and if you get an error message submitting this data set, that is because you did not carry out this step. So this step basically is going to take that data and convert it. You can try to tune this a little further. Yeah. And it's going to convert that data. And once the data is converted, you're going to create the name for the job, which is pretty much the same one, right? Like what we did. Here's the bucket on, and you're uploading this JSON file. This is the data set. The previous data set, if you see, the name of that data set was like Uber 10K JSON, right?
Yeah.
But if you see this one, this is a different data set, which is model distillation data set. So this is the converted one. We converted that into this format. And then we upload that into S3 bucket, and then you pretty much initiate your job.
So two different modalities as you kind of went through. I can go through kind of the GUI process with some of the training data that you dropped in that GitHub link, or I can follow through through this Jupyter experience and using more of a programmatic approach.
Correct. To this. If you are a data scientist and if you would like to do it in the Jupyter Labs way, this is the way to do it. If you are like a GUI person, data analyst, right, or business analyst, And if you are looking to distill, and here is your way to do it. Yeah. And either ways, even if you're doing it in here, one of the steps that you may have to do in the Jupyter Labs is about converting that data. If you already had a different mechanism, like you can write a Python script, right? If you have this data, all you have to do is that, hey, I want all of this data to be in this format. And if you give a sample and say that, hey, for this data set, here is an example, convert all the rows to reflect this format.
Interesting. Wow, this is a rapidly evolving space, Raj. I'm super thankful to have you really walk myself and the audience through model customization, some of the pros and cons, the mental model for why you would even want to consider customization, and now how you can kind of go through that using Bedrock, right? I think that's super cool that this is now available for customers to get their hands on. I guess as we wrap, what do you want the audience to kind of take away here, Raj, as we kind of conclude our episode today?
Absolutely. So the takeaway here is when you're working on machine learning problems, right? The things that we normally hear from customers is that, hey, the undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? I wanted to focus on my problem statement. I want to focus on improving the user experience. How can you help me with, I don't want to get into the method of getting GPUs. I don't want to get into the method of choosing which model will give which kind of a response and tuning some of the parameters in there, right? How can you help me? How can you give me kind of a white glove service, right? So the core takeaway is, if you're looking at building GenAI applications, and if you're looking for that kind of an experience where you want to use different APIs to access multiple foundation models, Bedrock is your way to go. And within Bedrock, you have several features. And this is, like, as you said, Jay, it's a rapidly evolving space. And Bedrock is one of the services that is also rapidly evolving with the number of features that get added. Say, for example, whenever we did this previous episode, right, which is like 3 months old, we didn't have these many options on the left side. And like, if you go back like 6 months, under Bedrock, it was only this much. It was only like top 4 or 5 rows. Now you in the initial time, you only had this foundation model and playgrounds, right? Now you have agents, you have workflows, you have safeguards. Later we added the guardrails, watermark detection, and then the provision throughput, etc. So this is only going to increase. So if you are looking at a one-stop shop, like previously, like maybe a year back, if we are talking about, you're looking for one-stop shop for machine learning, it is SageMaker. Now it is coming for generative AI. And if you're looking to improve the user experience using generative AI, where you're building GenAI capabilities, then Bedrock is your way to go. And you feel free to explore the different features that gets added, and through your account team also pass the feedback. And please use this Bedrock samples repo. Like, as you use your documentation, I'm pretty sure all the users are like familiar with all the documentation that I was sharing, but not all of them may know about the Bedrock sample. So once you get into the documentation, if you want to try to implement, that's how I do it, and I'm pretty sure, Jay, you will also do it. So use your account, try to explore. Yeah,
I'm excited to get my hands on this, Raj. I'm super excited about this. If you happen to miss this episode, don't worry, I got you covered. Raj wrote an amazing article that you should check out. It's on Repost. You should head over right now to repost.aws and check out his article around introducing model distillation, how you can really shrink AI for performance benefits, I'd say, right? For a number of benefits, right? And the mental model, going through that.
Want to call out one thing very quickly, Jay. If you are satisfied with the model accuracy that you get on a bigger model, and you want to bring your costs down, you want to improve your latency, right, through a smaller model, then explore how would you use model distillation to achieve it. And with Bedrock model distillation, you should be able to achieve what you want.
Absolutely. And Raj, you're an amazing contributor on the platform. Thank you, sir, for being a noble, honorable contributor to Repost. If you're not signed up, you're missing out on content that Raj produces. Raj and a bunch of other SMEs every single day. So head over to repost.aws, get signed up with your builder ID or your AWS account, I believe. And you can enjoy all of the content, including Raj's recent article around model distillation. So next week's going to be a little bit different, Raj. We're actually going to be at Reinforce, which I'm super excited about, over in Philadelphia, PA. So join us next Tuesday, June 17th, or wait, when am I going? I think I'm going Monday. I'm going to be over there Monday, June 16th, but we're going to have a show on the 17th, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern, and you'll see some familiar faces, including myself, Steven, Anoop. I believe will be there as well. The whole gang is going out there, but you can get the conversation started right now. We have, if you follow the Repost Live show tag, which you should be doing, you can get some of the conversation around the content that we're going to be producing for Reinforce started right now. We'll take your questions live on there like we always do. We always come through for you. So head over to repost.aws, get the conversation started. We'll see you over at Reinforce in Philadelphia, PA next week. I'm excited. I'm packing my bags tonight, Raj. So hopefully I can see you too, my friend.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right. Friends, thank you so much. As always, happy building.